All right, welcome in, college baseball fans. I am joined by my friend John Eads, who covers LSU baseball for WAFB down there in Baton Rouge. John, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing great. Well, slow Monday after week 3 of the preseason baseball scrimmages and practice, and now we're into opening week. It's coming up quick. I think we're 4 days away now at the time we're recording this. So before we know it, it's going to be Friday afternoon, and LSU's throwing out the first pitch against Purdue Fort Wayne.
Yeah, man, it's going to be super exciting. I wanted to have you on because, man, you've been at every single scrimmage. Seen all of these guys. I haven't been able to get eyes on the team yet myself. So I wanted to get somebody who's got that firsthand knowledge and seen all this stuff. Sounds like Cade Anderson might get that ball Friday night. What have you seen from him so far in these preseason scrimmages?
Yeah, I think so. He's been the best looking pitcher, in my opinion. He's gone the longest. He's done it in the most clean fashion, just working through the order. Every time I've seen him, he's just gotten a little bit better and better. So this past week, he had a really good stat line. I wrote it down: 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 7 Ks, no walks. What he's doing really well is getting ahead on counts, early strikes, and that's allowing him to continue to work through these innings and keeping his pitch count low. So he's gotten a lot better since last year, and he was still pretty darn good last season. Let's not forget. He's also added some leadership to his game, and the coaches just seem to really trust him. That's a big thing, being the Friday night guy to open the season. That takes a lot of trust. I think that Coach Johnson and Nate Yeskie are there with him, and this is his draft year. Like, this could be his last year at LSU, so he's got all the motivation in the world to go out there and ball out. So I think that's the safest bet for him to get the ball on Friday. He's looked the best. I think he's the most ready right now. That could change as the season goes along. There's a lot of talented arms on this team that have a lot of upside. But I think he's the best bet for Friday, and I'm highly confident in that, and that he can go out there and put a good start together.
Yeah, I know. This is definitely his year. I mean, last year he kind of struggled a little bit. I mean, he was phenomenal in the pre-conference slate. On the midweeks, especially. I mean, that outing he had against Southeastern last year really stands out.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of struggled a little bit during the SEC, but then really came on late, at the SEC tournament, and then again in Chapel Hill. So I'm excited to watch him develop. The guy that I've kind of called kind of the biggest X factor for this team, I feel like, is Chase Shores, though, and how he comes back off of Tommy John. It's going to be a massive story this year, and I think is really going to play into how good this LSU team is. Because if LSU wants to get back to Omaha and wants to get, wants to win another national championship, I feel like Chase Shores needs to be in the weekend rotation. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think he'll start the season as a starter. I don't think he's going to be the Friday guy. I think a lot of people maybe in, last July, last August would have thought he'd be the Friday starter, but he just hasn't been convincing enough. And I've been at all of these. I missed one outing that he had in the fall. That's it. And in the ones that I've seen, he's just been shaky and erratic. Even in the exhibition game in Biloxi against Samford, he'll give you a couple good innings, but then he has innings where he's walking guys, he's giving up contact, he's missing the zone, wild pitches, giving up free bases. And that's been consistent. Every time I've gone out there, I've hoped to see, like Cade, 5-6 innings of really solid ball without really having any bad innings, allowing 3 or 4 base runners, whatever it is. And he just hasn't had that. With that said, though, Jay Johnson compared him to Gage Jump, a guy that also had Tommy John surgery. Got off to maybe a little bit of a slow start last year. I think he's in a better position right now than Chase is, but eventually ended up being LSU's probably most important pitcher, because he was on the mound in Chapel Hill with their season on the line with a chance to win it and get LSU back here for the Super Regional. So he got better as the season went on. And I think Chase Shores has the capacity to do that same thing. He'll get better the more he's on the mound, the more games he pitches in. I don't know that I've seen the improvement from the first start I saw of him to now, but I'm not there every day. I'm not at practice every day and behind closed doors like those guys are. I can just tell you based on what I've seen. I'm sure that he's making little improvements here and there. I think you need to put him out there, though, because the only way he's going to get better is if he is getting these opportunities, he's making these mistakes, and he's learning from them. So Coach Johnson was preaching patience in our last media availability, which was encouraging for me to hear, because that tells me that he knows And I'm not just seeing things that he is struggling, but it's going to take some time. And eventually they feel he's going to get to a spot where they're happy with him and he can be that Friday, that Saturday starter. And to your point, I think they will need him. You're going to have at least two guys you were very confident in to go out there and win you the first two games. Like last year, you had Gage Jump and Luke Holman. Those were two very good starters. You have a high degree of confidence going into a series. They do a regional, whatever it is. You can win those first two games with those two guys as your starters. They probably should have done that in Chapel Hill. So you're going to need Chase Shores to be that second or first guy, whatever it is. And they got more guys on top of that I think they're in a better position pitching-wise this year than they were last year. But I like your point of him being the X factor because he could really push this team to limits beyond what they know if he can reach his full potential.
Yeah, I said earlier a couple weeks ago that I thought maybe Shores might start. I mean, maybe on the midweeks or something like that to kind of get him ramped up. I mean, if you remember, Gage Jump wasn't in the weekend rotation to start opening weekend last year. I thought maybe Zach Cohen would come in maybe opening weekend and kind of be the third starter. But it sounds like Shores pitched on the Saturday scrimmage, so that's a pretty good indication that he's going to be, that he's going to pitch next weekend.
I think so. I think Callan's a guy that could be a Sunday starter though, because he did that a lot at Wofford, not Sunday. He was their ace, but has a lot of starting experience, a lot of strikes, not necessarily high velocity, but he puts the ball in the zone. And he's looked good at times. He's been a little up and down because, got to keep in mind they're going against LSU's offense, right? So at some point they're going to get theirs too. But I think he's a guy that could, at least an opening weekend, be the Sunday starter because of that experience he has and the fact that he's been starting in these scrimmages as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, and so we'll see how it all pans out. A guy we didn't see this weekend that I was kind of hoping to, but it sounds like maybe he's a little under the weather this weekend. It was Anthony Ianson. It sounds like he's going to be good to go for opening weekend and not have any issues. But what have you seen from the UCSD transfer?
Seen a lot of good things. Would have liked to see him again this week just to kind of confirm everything that I'd seen before. But I've seen him pitch quite a bit. Just solid. I can't really remember a day or a time where he was shaky, erratic, got lit up. It's just a lot of solid innings. So that's kind of the storyline with a lot of these guys. They come from smaller schools where they've gotten a lot of experience. And now the question is, does it translate to SEC ball? And I think he has what it takes. I kind of had him penciled in possibly as a starter. I haven't seen him start a game, though, if I'm not mistaken. I might have to go check my video footage back. But mostly he's been on the Friday, Saturday, coming out of the bullpen, that first arm out, giving you 3 or 4 innings, kind of like a Griffin Herring kind of role, really. Jay Johnson said that he's going to be leaving one of his best pitchers in the bullpen, just like he did with Herring last year. And I'm curious to know who that guy is. Is it Connor Ware? Is it Anthony Ianson? Do they have 2 of them? He might be one of those guys.
No, interesting. Yeah, I kind of assumed he was penciled in as going to be a starter. I was expecting, Anderson, Ianson, and then maybe Cohen on opening weekend. But you're saying you think he might come out of the pen. That's interesting.
Well, if we put Shores on the Saturday starting gig, that's your 3. Or you could go Ianson. I think Shores has to be a starter, though, in my opinion, whether that's Saturday, midweek, whatever it is. And Ianson has been a guy out of the bullpen they've been using. So, I know we get locked into these things. He's a starter. He's a this. He's a that. Ianson's kind of a chess piece for me. He could do a lot of different things for you. I think he can come in on a Friday and Anderson goes 5 or 6 and he finishes the game. It could be that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that would be, really interesting, kind of because Ianson's kind of more of a pitchability guy. I mean, yeah, his fastball's, low to mid 90s, kind of like a Luke Holman last year.
Yep.
But he's just a really good pitcher. He's got 4 pitches that he can throw for strikes. Maybe not quite as overpowering as a Chase Shores or a Cade Anderson, but definitely has a lot of tools in his repertoire.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Connor Ware. I really see him as that guy coming out of the pen. I think he is like the ideal candidate for that, for lack of a better term, the Griffin Herring, role from last year. How do you see Connor Ware?
Yeah, I think just like that. I think he could start, but I've seen him out of the bullpen more. And Man, he's a guy that really stood out to me at their exhibition game. Like, Samford could not hit him. Jay Johnson said he was their best pitcher in the fall. I don't see any reason why, he would have regressed at all since then, He also did not pitch this week, if I'm not mistaken. So he and Ianson were kind of dealing with something, nothing official, but I'm hearing they were sick or whatever. So I saw him working out on, what was that, Friday or Saturday. He was going through a workout with the strength and conditioning coach. I mean, he's fine. He's putting up 65 on the incline press. So he'll be good to go. But yeah, lefty, great arm. The scouts love him. He probably shouldn't even be pitching in college. He probably wouldn't be if he didn't get injured in his last year at Pearl River Community College. Jay Johnson, I feel like, knows what he has and where that not a lot of other people do. So, yeah, I think he's going to be another very valuable arm out of the bullpen. I mean, this room is stacked to me. I think they have a lot more potent, proven, and valuable options top to bottom than they did last year. So somehow, some way, they're going to put this thing together, the recipe that will lead them to win a lot of games this season.
Yeah, so who are some of the names on the pitching staff that maybe we haven't talked to yet, but really that you've seen have really shown out and really flashed?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. There's a lot of arms in there. Gavin Guidry's trying to extend. I'm, up and down. I wouldn't say that that's going extremely well, but he's trying, and he's had some good spots. I'll be curious to see what they do with that. If they want to use him as a short burst guy some more, try to get him to 3 or 4 innings. He's been working on that. William Schmidt's been on the mound a decent amount. Up and down as well, just kind of classic freshman things. He's got the stuff, though. I mean, he throws triple digits. His curveball is elite, so I'm sure he'll get some opportunities. And I'll be curious to see how he does in like a real game scenario against another team, because most of the time he's pitching against the better hitters on this team, like Jared Jones and Derek Curiel and those kind of guys. I mean, that's a tall order for a freshman, despite the tools that he has. So he's a guy that stood out for sure. Jaden Newt has started the past couple weeks, 3 innings or so, and looked good, in my opinion. A lot better than last year. We didn't see him a lot last year, but he was a big recruit coming out of high school, and I'll be curious to see what kind of a role he carves out. Bullpen, maybe he works his way into a starting role midweek or Sunday. Who knows? He's had good stuff. Maverick Rizzi, I think this is the last one I'll mention. The scrimmage they did this past Sunday was only 3 innings, but he got the ball for the bottom of the third. He went 1, 2, 3, and he's a very physically imposing guy. He's 6'9", 253. He's done a lot of 1-2 inning closing stints in the preseason, and people have said some good things about him. I haven't been there for some of those because I usually have to leave towards the end of the scrimmage to go somewhere else. Somehow I always miss it, but I've heard good things, and I got to see it this past week. So that was impressive. He throws high velocity. He's kind of like Chase Shore, is a very, very big, rangy pitcher who I think they could use maybe to close some of these games this year.
Yeah, certainly no lack of options there in the pitching staff. Let's move on to kind of some of the position players. Let's look at the outfield. I know Jay Johnson said in his media availability a couple weeks ago that there were like 8 guys he was looking at in the outfield. Seems like Jake Brown has just been hitting the cover off the ball. Derek Curiel has done extremely well, as well. Ashton Larson's done pretty well too. How do you see this outfield kind of shaking out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of Curiel, Stanfield, and Brown. And then obviously you got Ethan Fry, Ashton Larson, Josh Pearson, who probably will spend more time DHing this year than playing outfield because they just simply have guys, no offense to Josh, that are better athletes in the outfield. He's got the experience, but they got a lot of speed on this team and athleticism. So he could just DH, he does that very well. Not that he's a bad outfielder, but Curiel and Stanfield are faster than Josh Pearson. I mean, that's just a fact, But that's how I see it going. A lot of depth. It's unfortunate. A lot of these guys could start in a lot of programs, but you can only play 3 at once. With that said, though, if someone's going through a slump or you want to mix up the lineup on a particular weekend, midweek, you got options. You can throw Fry in. You can throw Larson in. And they're very good candidates for pinch hitting as well because they take good ABs. Fry had a really good weekend. He had a 2 RBI triple and an RBI single, and he has that pop and power. We've seen that before. So that's how I see it going, though. Curiel's been amazing. He's the preseason freshman of the year. I think he's going to live up to that billing and then some. Stanfield's been an on-base machine. I see him batting leadoff, and he's a great athlete out there. He's made some great plays. And then Jake Brown went 7 for 7. 7 for 8 for the weekend, but 7 consecutive hits, doubles, home runs, singles. He's really been hot lately and at the right time. So I think he's played his way into that right field job.
Yeah, he's been awesome. I've seen some people predicting that maybe he ends up, in the 4 hole behind Jared Jones, trying to protect him. That's going to be a key to this offense is protecting Jared Jones. And kind of moving into the infield now, I know there's a lot of different infield combinations. I know Tanner Reeves has kind of gotten in the mix there. And then obviously everybody knows Braswell, Milam, and Jones. I mean, those 3 guys, how do you think it's all going to shake out? And then of course there's Daniel Dickinson. People haven't really seemed to be talking about him as much. What did you see from the transfer second baseman?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Dickinson, I've kind of been waiting for that wow moment, but he's just a really steady player. I've seen him make a couple errors at second base, but I think he's adjusting to that new position. I'm pretty sure he played more shortstop at Utah Valley, if I'm not mistaken.
He played second base.
Did he play second? Okay. I think they were trying him out at second or short and third in the fall. Now he's starting to settle in at second base. But overall, been solid. He had an RBI single over the weekend. He's had some home runs in the fall. So the coaching staff loves him. Jay Johnson gave him number 14 because his work ethic, he plays so hard, reminds him of Pete Rose. He thinks he'll be a fan favorite. So I got no problems with Daniel Dickinson, but Tanner Reeves looked good too. He's great AB guy, takes a lot of walks, gets on base a lot, had some good defensive moments this weekend as well. Really good JUCO player. So I think you got 2 good options there if you want to rotate him for whatever reason at some point. I think Milam's locked in at short. He had a really good defensive weekend, a lot of wow plays and a lot of throws that people have been wanting to see him make to prove that he could play that position, which I don't ever think should have been in doubt. He made. And then Braswell, with his athleticism and history at shortstop, kind of fits third base well because he's used to moving laterally, but now he's only got really to worry about one side of the situation, right, at third. So he's looked steady there. Haven't seen him really have any errors. No errors at third base. He's had a couple issues at second, but I think he's going to be playing third this year, so whatever. And then Jones looked great at first base, in my opinion. Stepping to the ball, keeping his foot on the bag, grabbing balls out of the dirt, making some catches down the foul line, whatever it is. He's really improved his defense, I think. So that's kind of my take on the infield.
Do you think there's a world where maybe Tanner Reeves takes Braswell's spot at third? Maybe, because you value getting on base. So if Braswell's going through a stretch where he's just not getting on, wherever he's hitting, if it's the 9 hole, top of the order, whatever it is, Reeves has been that guy. He's taken a lot of pitches. He's getting on base. I mean, that's very valuable. So I could see that. I could also see him taking second because I've seen him more at second base. And, if Dickinson, for whatever reason, needs to sit or you want to mix things up or Reeves is just too good, you got to play him, I could see him stepping in there as well. So a lot of buzz about him, and I endorse all of it. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Milam play shortstop. I called him Baby Bregman on Twitter the other day. Because it's kind of hard. And there's some parallels there. Obvious. I mean, they're both from New Mexico, and they're both a little bit undersized. Milam obviously a little bit more undersized than Bregman, and neither one of them really necessarily projected as shortstops at the next level. But I think there's a lot to like about Milam at shortstop.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, you care about their pro prospects, right? But you care more about winning and winning national championships. And I think having Milam at shortstop just boosts the ceiling of this team even more because he's the best defender on the team. And he's kind of like a chess piece. You want to put him in the most positions where he can get involved, and make an impact. So I think moving him to short, the way they shift him too, against righties, they'll pull him closer to the third baseline. Against lefties, they'll put him almost basically at second base. Obviously, that's how a shift works, but maybe even more so, more aggressive over there. They're really trying to put him in position to touch the ball every time someone's in the batter's box. unless it's a fly ball to the outfield, in which you can't. You don't need it to, though.
So looking at the catching position, it seems like it's been really offensive, but maybe some of the little, defensively, maybe there's been some struggles. I've seen some things about Cade Arambidi letting some balls get by him. It seems like Luis Hernandez has kind of maybe been the most steady back there behind the plate. Is that how you've seen it?
Yeah, that's the correct prognosis to me. I was trying to think in my head, has there really been a day where Luis has had to backtrack to the wall to grab a ball? And I can't really think of one off the top of my head. I'm sure there's been one over the past 6 months, but he's been the most steady. He's the most veteran guy. I think he's your starter day one. He was rated the number 10 catcher in the country by D1 Baseball. Didn't do a lot of it last year at Indiana State because they had another catcher they liked there. So the staff was curious to see how he would shake out defensively, whatever, at LSU, and he's exceeded their expectations, their words. Obviously, he's got the power at the plate. He hit 23 homers last year at Indiana State. That's transferred over for sure. He's excited to play for LSU. He said not a lot of people from Puerto Rico, if anybody, has ever played at LSU. I'd have to go back and check his interview. Not many have. So he's really excited for the opportunity, and he's looked the best. Yeah, Cade Arambidi is a guy that I've talked about a lot, and I'm really excited about. The one thing he has struggled with is catching the ball at times. It pops out of his glove. He's getting better at stopping the bad pitches, getting in front, blocking them. Same with Blaze Priester. I think those are your top three: Luis, Cade, and Blaze, in that order. Eddie Yaman, they trotted out at first base on Sunday. I think it's just a situation where you don't have, enough innings to give him, and you have a top three. And obviously, if someone gets injured, he'll factor into the equation. But I think that's your top three, and that's what you go with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What for the DH role? You said you think Josh Pearson's a pretty good shot at that. It seems like Cade Arambidi has done a lot of really good things with the bat, even though he's maybe struggled defensively. I know Blaze Priester led the team in home runs in the fall. Mm-hmm. You see any of those guys maybe factoring into that DH spot?
Yeah, I think Ethan Fry is another guy that could factor in there if he can't get a spot in the outfield. Same with Josh Pearson, kind of just playing the DH role. I think Josh is a lock, though, if he's not playing outfield, to be the DH to start the season and maybe for the entirety of the season. But yeah, I think Cade Arambidi will get some opportunities. If he's not getting them catching, which I think he will, he's done a fine enough job back there to get some opportunities midweek or whatever it is. You want to put him out there on a Sunday. It's just kind of all about what you're feeling on that day and the matchups and whatnot. But he's got a lot of pop and power, and he's displayed that. Doubles, home runs, singles, the ability to get on base. So he could be in that situation for sure. I wouldn't say to start the season, but he could play his way into that role. They're kind of taking, minus Curiel. Curiel, they're going to throw out there day one, and he's ready for it, in my opinion. But Cade and William Schmidt, I think they're going to guide along, not slowly, but in a situation that benefits them, right, for their entire career is how they put it. So I wouldn't expect them to start day one. I wouldn't expect them to be big impact guys the first weekend. But as the season goes, I could see those two and Cade in relation to the DH role getting more and more opportunities. And you hope that they take advantage of those opportunities and they're ready for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the depth on this team is pretty incredible. In these scrimmages, how have you seen them kind of move the offense? Has there been a lot of base stealing, maybe some sacrificing, bunting, a lot of putting guys in motion? Has there been a lot of that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different in that regard this year because of the point I made earlier about the type of athletes they have. Just a lot of guys that can wreak havoc on the base path, from a stealing standpoint. Curiel is just as dangerous swinging as he is bunting. The guy can put it on the grass and get to first base safely, really whenever he wants. He did that this past weekend. He just last second put his bat out there, knocked it down, and got to first base. Really, I don't think a lot of other guys would have been safe on that kind of the way he contacted the ball. But he got there. Chris Stanfield has been a guy nobody's been able to get out at second. I think that's kind of more of what we're going to see this year because they lost Tommy White, they lost Hayden Travitzky, they lost a lot of that power. They're going to have to kind of piece the runs together in a more strategic way on hit and runs, on steals, on bunts, but they have the guys to do that, the athletes to do that. So I'm glad you asked that question, because I think the style of play is going to be different in that regard. But with that said, you still have some power on this lineup, of course, with Jared Jones. So I think it'll be a good mix of a lot of things.
Yeah, I talked to Josh Jordan back in December. He mentioned that this team may not hit, as many home runs, but that this team was going to hit a lot of doubles, and there's going to be a lot of double power. Maybe not so much the home run power. I mean, obviously Jared Jones is going to hit, he's going to get his home runs, but some of the other guys that maybe you don't have another 20 home run guy on the team.
Yeah.
But you got a lot of guys, that have 10 to 15 home runs in them with another 10 to 15 doubles each,
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you've seen the offense kind of play out?
Yeah, I think that's the way I see it. A lot of guys with a handful of home runs, and then a lot of stolen bags and doubles to kind of make up for that production. So you won't see the numbers in the home run line, but you'll see them in the SB, in the RBI, and in the double line. So you got to produce those runs and make up for those runs somewhere. I think that's how they're going to do it this year. So.
Well, sounds like there's a lot to be excited about this year. I think this team's going to make it back to Omaha. I know we were talking right before we hit record here about you excited to maybe get an opportunity to follow this team up to Omaha. Yeah. I think you'll get that chance. Certainly hope we do. Certainly hope. I know LSU fans are excited for this possibility, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. And I will see you this weekend down in Baton Rouge.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for a great season. Hopefully, a lot of good memories. Hopefully, a regional in BR, a super regional in BR, and then make our way up to Nebraska there.
Yeah, the postseason in Baton Rouge at the box. There's really nothing like it. One more thing before I get you out of here, though. My friends at Chinook Seedery, they've asked me, anytime I get a guest on, I got to ask them, what's your favorite sunflower seeds?
I'm going to be honest, Alex, I really don't eat sunflower seeds. I'm not going to lie. Man. So can you bring some of those to the box and I could try them? And then
absolutely,
I can give you an answer. I don't know why. I just never really caught on to the sunflower seed eating, Mm-hmm. I see a lot of people do it. Obviously, it's big in baseball. But growing up, I was more of a big league chew guy. I just would chew gum instead of the sunflower seeds.
Yeah, I understand the big league chew. Personally, man, at Chinook, they've got this Hatch chili flavor.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen in my Twitter bio, but I am the official Hatch chili president of Chinook Seedery. So, I'm going to have a ton of those. I'll bring some other flavors too. They got like a jalapeno ranch. They have a cinnamon toast flavor that sounds really weird, but I'm telling you, it's excellent. I mean, you're just basically sucking on cinnamon toast crunch. And so, yeah, I'll bring you some this weekend for sure.
That'd be great. Yeah. Maybe put me onto the sunflower seed thing.
Absolutely. And if you use code CBC at checkout for Chinook, you get 10% off.
Boom.
All right.